Today we're going to read the second part of our story, The Night the Moon Fell. So I'd like you to turn to pages 136 and pages 137. Luna started swaying to their music, and the fish swayed with her. Then Luna began to hum and to roll to her music. And as she rolled in this strange new land, she began to collect herself. "How can we help?" asked the tiniest fish. Luna sang. "All you need is part of you. Ask yourself what you should do." The tiny fish thought and thought. They whispered, "Psss, psss, psss, psss," and then they knew what to do. The little fish looked inside shells and deep and cold sea caves for bits of glowing moon. With their silvery fins, they began to sweep together the slivers and bits, and on the strange sand, the moon rolled and rolled into herself. She said, "Pisitos, little fish, soothe me whole. Please grant my wish." The fish swam round and round Luna, patching and smoothing. With their silvery fins, they smoothed her roundness. Luna laughed at the tickly fins. When she studied herself, Luna knew she needed just a bit of her friends to stay together. So she said, "Now what I need is part of you. Will you be my silvery glue?" So lots of things are happening on these two pages. So what happens with the help of the fish? What do they do? How do they put back Luna together again? That will be one of the questions that you will be answering. And then what would be the very last thing that they would need to help her with? What is going to be her silvery glue, the glue that puts her back? Where does she need to go back to? As I read this page, I want you to think about what comparison do the fish use to describe how Luna looks and how she feels as she begins to float. So they're going to compare her to something. We're going to be using visualizing, thinking about the pictures to help us figure out the answer. The little fish looked at themselves. The tiny fish thought and thought. They whispered, "Psss, psss, psss." Luna smiled and hummed. The fish began to wiggle and dance, and they knew what to do. They shook themselves to loosen a few of their silvery scales, and with their fins they patched the rolling moon. As Luna rolled into herself, the sea around her glistened. Luna began to hum and glow. Oh, how beautiful she looked when she was round and whole again. The deep ocean was filled with her white light. Waves rolled rainbows, and the little fish rested. Luna then said, "Gracias, mis amigos. Thank you. Thank you for your silvery glue." "You're so happy. You're like a balloon," said the littlest fish, watching the moon begin to float. Luna laughed. "Now round and whole am I, and can float home to my sky." The fish watched Luna float slowly up from the bottom of the sea. They whispered, "Psss, psss, psss, psss." So what did they compare her to? Right at the very top it says, "You're so happy, you're like a..." Yeah, I can't give you the answer. And then they knew what to do. Holding on to one another's tails, the tiny fish wove themselves into a silvery net around Luna. "That tickles, friends, but I agree. Come swim the sky and accompany me." Slowly Luna and the tiny fish rose through the clouds and through the stars. When they were high in the night sky, Luna began to hum, and the night sky changed. Luna's white light opened the stars' eyes, and her friend the wind purred. Flowers lifted their heads, and birds flew high, sang one note, and then nestled in the trees and on the rooftops. So what's happening at the end of our story, at the end of this myth? Where is Luna going back to? And what do you think that the big idea or the theme is of our story? We talked earlier about it being friendship. Do you still agree with that? I'm going to read the last 2 pages, and then we're going to come back to that question because I am going to have you answer that in your seesaw assignment. The moon was home, and she sang new songs of goldfish and starfish, of coral and kelp, of rolling rainbow waves. Luna's friends, the tiny fish, started swimming in the huge night sky. They heard her voice, sweeter than the scent of 1,000 flowers, softer than the s of waves at dawn. Luna sang, "Please, dear friends, stay here with me. Swim my skies, my star-bright sea." And they did. Look up, high in the sky. Luna's friend, the wind dozes, and her amigos, the tiny fish, swim nearby. They twinkle through the night, and Luna smiles her white light. So we're going to go back to what you think that theme is. So we were talking about friendship. Do you think that it's still about friendship? I do. I think it's about friendship and helping each other when things are hard or maybe somebody's in trouble. I feel like we have a friendship like they do in this story. Of course, we're not the moon and the fish, right? But we've all had to help each other through something new and something way different than we've ever done before. So I feel like this story, every year that we've read it, it was kind of like my second graders would say, "Mrs. Tolles, this is kind of a different story." But this year, for some reason, it kind of just makes me think of us as second graders, as history makers. We kind of had to pull each other together and help each other do things that nobody had ever done before. So I hope you enjoyed this story. You have some questions to answer, and I want you to go back and read the story all by yourself.